Finish him.
Sorry. No,
Bobbity wins. Fatality. While Dragon Ball is nowhere near as gruesome as an anime like One Punch Man or even Chainsaw Man, it has had its fair share of graphic scenes. Most scenes in Dragon Ball are just as violent as their manga counterparts. In some rare cases, the anime was actually more brutal. But what about the scenes that were softened up? The ones where the manga displayed a level of brutality that its sissy cousin, the anime, couldn't live up to. Where the violence in the manga showed us what true carnage actually was. Well, in today's video, we will discuss the manga violence that reigns supreme. Coming in at number 10, we have Tien losing his arm. Now this is a rather straightforward scene. In the anime, we see a slow motion sequence of Nappa punching his arm off, but the blood specifically was discolored and Tien had a much weaker reaction to the pain that he felt. However, the manga turns this up a notch as you see the blood clearly being displayed. But most importantly, when it comes to Tien's reaction, you can actually see the blood continuing to spurt like a fountain after the dismemberment. The anime softened this up big time as you see no blood pouring from Tien's arm afterwards. But in the manga, in every scene afterwards between Tien and Nappa, you can constantly see the blood flying and dripping at every moment, showing us the constant leakage that was pouring out of Tien's arm. And for all of these reasons, this is our first case where the manga was far more violent. Coming in at number 9, we have the execution of Dr. Gero. Now this is a classic example of the anime chickening out and shying away from the true nature of this graphic event. Both the anime and the manga show us the sequence in which 17 impales Dr. Gero with his hand, following it up with a kick to the head, knocking it off clean. But what the anime doesn't show you is what 17 did after, because in the anime, we see 17 coming over to squish Gero's head, but we don't see the gory detail. The manga, however, doesn't shy away from this, and shows you the dismembered head and brain matter all over the ground. It even shows Dr. Gero's leftover eye with no socket to hold it in place. And for all of these reasons, Dr. Gero's death made the list. Coming in at number 8, we have the dead family. Now when Earth's forces were spying on Bobbity, there was a brief scene where you can see a dead family that was killed by Bobbity's goons. The anime showed their bodies laying down lifeless, but the manga showed something much worse. You can see the entire family was completely torn apart. The father is shown with one of his arms sliced off. The mother was shown being ripped in half with her organs and intestines lying out for us to see. And to show you how the manga pulled no punches, we even see that a little kid was shown dead this time, but with a pool of blood over his head. Far more graphic than the mild version that we saw in the anime adaptation. Coming in at number 7, we have Guldo's decapitation. Now in the anime, we see a slowed down sequence where a cute little animated line was created to show us that Guldo's head was cut off by Vegeta, and then it rolls to the ground softly like popping off a cork on a bottle. But the manga showed us everything. We see the head being cut off with blood oozing at every scene afterwards. And the look of horror and confusion as to what was happening to Guldo just added to how much more graphic the manga variation actually was. Coming in at number 6, we have Gowasu gets gutted. Now this scene was actually changed in the manga as compared to the anime. There was an added scene of Goku Black gutting Gowasu in the future timeline with everyone else around that never happened in the anime. In this scene, you can see the depth of the cut and how Gowasu was about to die if Future Trunks didn't heal him in time with his Supreme Kai Apprentice powers. But the scene that was consistent with the anime and manga was the death of the other Gowasu. In the manga, you see a large pool of blood that Gowasu's dead corpse was lying in, and in the anime you saw none of that, just Gowasu falling down with a shiny psionic blade sequence. No gutting, no blood, just a fallen Gowasu. Moving up to our top 5, we have the death of the old man. When Trunks returns to the future timeline to kill the androids, we see that an injured old man uses his pistol to shoot 17 in the face. Of course, this did nothing, and 17 comes over to shoot the old man with his pistol, right as Trunks fires an energy blast to distract 17, saving the old man's life. And after Trunks kills the androids, we see that the same old man was eventually saved. But the manga was much more dark. We see that Trunks was too late, and 17 shoots the old man right before Trunks arrives. Now, we didn't get a chance to see the dead body, but it's clearly implied that 17 blew the old man's brains out with his pistol. And the fact that the manga killed a character that didn't even die in the anime showed us that the original story didn't hold back at all. However, because we didn't see the actual body and the gore of the old man, this moment couldn't crack into our top 4. Now at number 4, we have the Barbarian Massacre.
Watch where you walking, nigga. Hey, what you say, nigga?
Now in the anime, we have a sequence where Zamasu and Gowasu travel to see the alien barbarians. Zamasu eventually gets into an altercation and slices one of them to death. But in the anime, we see nothing but a wimpy light show and a split body. But the manga goes further beyond. Before Zamasu's altercation, you can see that the barbarians are actually engaging in a war and killing each other directly in a much more graphic way than the anime showed us. One barbarian in particular gets squished by a rock, and we can see what's left over of his arm, as we can see that there's a ton of blood being under the rock. And after this, we see piles of dead barbarians lined up with blood all over. But ultimately, for Zamasu's actual fight against that one key barbarian, you can see that he slices him in half similarly to what we saw in the anime. But in the manga, there was tons of blood oozing out. And when we see his leftover corpse, there was an entire pool of blood all over the ground, as we can see his body split in half. Now as we arrive at our top 3, we have the death of Spopovich. Now this one is simple. After Babidi no longer had any usage for Spopovich and Yamo, he decided to execute them. Yamo simply had Pui Pui fire a blast at him and kill him quickly so his suffering wasn't very long. But Spopovich was basically pumped up into a human balloon, and then he exploded. But the key difference is that in the manga, you can see his mutilated body parts, intestines, blood, and all of the other gross ingredients required to make this top 3 as compared to the 7 below. And when we compare this to the anime, all we see is a huge explosion where all of the gunk was completely suppressed and softened up for the anime audience. As for our runner-up at number 2, we have Dr. Gero's fatality. In typical Mortal Kombat fashion, Gero was just strolling through the city looking for trouble when he sets his sights on a random man in a car. In the anime, Gero just chokes this man to death, and to be completely honest with you, it's not even fully sure if this man actually died in the anime, as the man simply could have been unconscious when Gero decides to drop him to the floor. But the manga didn't hold back. It literally shows Gero pull the man's head off like plucking a grape from a vine. What Gero did to that random driver is far worse than what happened to Yamcha, especially because Yamcha eventually healed up and lived to see another day. Now unfortunately at our top spot, you already know the answer by looking at the thumbnail, but the truth is that there's truly no other way to argue for any other moment. Nothing can possibly beat Gohan killing the Cell Juniors. Now one key difference is that in the original anime, there were 8 Cell Juniors that were killed instead of 7 because of an animation mistake. But the anime and the manga are both awesome in their own way. In the anime, Gohan hits the Cell Juniors so hard that they literally exploded on impact with his heavy hits. In contrast, the manga shows Gohan ripping the Cell Juniors apart systematically, but as he rips them apart, you can see all of the body material coming out, with absolutely no care in the world for censorship. And as you look upon the editing of this video, you can see for yourself how much more graphic Gohan's killing of the Cell Juniors actually was. The pictures speak louder than words, which is why this ended up as the #1 undisputed spot on this list.